And Una, thanks again for doing this. So I first want to ask you, actually, what what got you hooked on Star Trek, and how were you inspired by it?
What got me interested in Star Trek and what inspired me about it? Well, I guess I'm quite unusual in that I'm of a certain age and grew up in Britain, where it's not like my American friends who are sort of my age, Generation X. They were able to watch Star Trek pretty much all the time. It was on syndication. It's quite hard to watch in the UK. So really, I only got into it when I started watching the movies. Or the films, as we call them in Britain, when they were coming out. So during the sort of early, mid 80s, I was going to the cinema. I probably started watching round about Wrath of Khan, I think. And it was the Voyage Home that really grabbed me. I just thought that was it's really the high point of those 80s adventure space movies, wasn't it? And then after that, it was a case of waiting for Star Trek The Next Generation to arrive. We knew it was coming in Britain, but it took a long time to reach us. And I was about 16 or 17. I loved science fiction. And I was having to go to Blockbuster once every couple of weeks and get out a cassette which had 2 episodes on. And I would watch them again and again and again on Fridays, Saturday nights. All my mates are out partying and clubbing. I'd be watching Star Trek The Next Generation. And then I started reading the novels, the Next Gen novels. And really, once you've got into the habit of watching something, you kind of follow the shows that come next. So that's how I got into DS9 and so on. I came back to DS9, actually. That's a different story. But I think I'm of the age group, again, where Star Wars came out when I was an impressionable age. So I was 6 or 7 when the first Star Wars movie came. And you don't recover from those huge space shots. You just think they're the best thing you've ever seen. And it imprints on you, and you want to spend that time in space. You want to be on a spaceship. You want to be adventuring. You want to be seeing new lives, new planets. And that's really why I got into science fiction and why I got into Star Trek.
I absolutely love that. I love that. And and I'm like nodding and trying to talk to you. Like, wait, I'm muting, and this is supposed to be about you. So you mentioned DS9 is another story. Talk about Deep Space Nine and how you got involved writing those novels.
So how did I get into Deep Space Nine and particularly writing the DS9 novels? Well, back in the early days of the internet, you were either a Babylon 5 fan or you were a Deep Space Nine fan. And I was a Babylon 5 fan. And I wouldn't watch Deep Space Nine. You really, really couldn't. It was, it was to rival the worst kind of sports rivalries. And you were Vorlons or you were Shadows. And eventually a friend of mine said, look, you've really got to watch Deep Space Nine because you will love it. He was a very good friend. So I agreed to borrow his video cassettes, indeed, as they were. And he was very cunning. He was very crafty. He didn't start me with the first few seasons, which I love now, but are quite slow moving. It's finding its feet. It's telling different stories. No, he knew I loved Next Gen. He started me with The Way of the Warrior, and I was absolutely hooked. That was really pacey, really exciting. Of course, I knew Worf, and in very early on in that episode, a man walks into my life who changes my life completely, and that is Elim Garak. And I thought that was the funniest, most arresting performance I had ever seen in Star Trek. Just those few lines that Garak has at the start of Way of the Warrior, and then a couple of scenes, that one where he gets beaten up by Klingons. I was to learn that Garak gets beaten up very, very often by anyone who's passing by. That was enough to hook me on Deep Space Nine, and I just kept on watching. Eventually, I was kind of ahead of my friend. I was buying the videotapes and lending them to him as the season was coming to as the show was coming to its conclusion. And I found that I couldn't stand the end of the show. I just couldn't bear what had happened to Cardassia. It was too bleak. It was too dreadful. And I started writing stories, started writing fan fiction to get us out of that, to see the way through. And I started posting those online. Again, we're in the late 90s now. So I was posting them on things like Usenet, and I think it became Google Groups after a while. And I was spotted. I got an email out of the blue from a guy called Marco Palmieri, who said, I'm the editor of the Star Trek books at Simon & Schuster. We're looking to do a DS9 anniversary anthology. It must have been 10 years, I think. Are you interested? Would you like to pitch? And of course, I said, yes, that would be amazing. That would be fantastic. And from that came a short story, a novella, a novel, and then all my subsequent Trek publications.
Marco is the guy who edited my Voyages book that you were kind enough to
Mm.
let me interview you for a while back.
Yeah,
So thanks
yeah,
again
yeah,
for
yeah.
that. And my daughter would love to see Project Runway hosted by Garak.
All Garak all the time, as far as I'm concerned.
Um, so you've written a Star Trek Discovery novel. You've also recently written a Star Trek Picard novel. At least for Discovery, you got to watch some episodes ahead of time, but yet for the Picard one, you didn't get to see anything at all. So could you talk a bit about the process of doing that?
So, what was the process of writing the Star Trek Picard novel? Well, when I did the Discovery book about Tilly, Way to the Stars, Discovery had been on for a season, so I was able to watch episodes. So I had a pretty good idea who Tilly was, what she was like. And of course, going into Picard, I had a pretty good idea of who Picard was, but not so much perhaps the characters around him. And the show was in production. I didn't get to watch or see any material from episodes, but I was in the loop for reading the scripts. They were coming in thick and fast, and revisions were coming in thick and fast as well. So often I was reading multiple versions of scripts. Now, this could be pretty scary for a novelist. Fortunately, we'd worked quite hard, me and Kirsten Beyer, Margaret Clark, Tatum Ward. We'd worked very hard to come up with a story that was a prequel story that, while it was very closely related to the people that we would meet and the story that we were going to see, it wasn't going to be affected by the events of that. So the book takes place about 15 years earlier. So I was reading the scripts, and what that was giving me most of all, I think, was the tone of the show, the flavour of it, and some of the imagery that was repeatedly used. They seemed very, no surprise really, given the writing team, they seemed very novelistic scripts to me, and I responded to them in that way. The imagery that was being used, the colour palette that I was picking up, images of sort of very autumnal feel to it, images of flowers fading or fruit rotting, these kinds of things. So I was picking these up and putting them into the book. When it came to characters, again, I had to kind of use my wits more than anything else. There are a few people, obviously, we would be familiar with, but others like Agnes Jurati or Raffi Musica, there was dialogue on the page, obviously, and that was bringing the characters to life. But it helps, I think, if you know who the actor is and what they're going to be doing, get a sense of their physicality. So I tried to watch things that they were in. I'd seen Alison Pill in things already. I went looking for things that Michelle Hurd had done, and just try to get a sense of who these people were and how the actors might move or behave on screen. So I didn't get to see any material in advance, but I was very deeply immersed in the process of seeing the scripts and seeing them emerge and feeling that I was getting to know the characters that way.
And you did an amazing job considering.
Thank you.
I was going to say, I love the story of you picking up video cassette after video cassette, and now I can just hop on my computer and stream any of them, which...
Incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Just, sit down tonight. I probably watch them less now. So, I could watch them anytime, but getting this cassette was amazing. Watch it again and again.
So how do you find the character's voice, especially because they're established characters?
So how do you go about finding the character's voice, particularly with established characters? Well, I love watching Star Trek, so it's no hardship to me to just watch again and again and again and get a sense of how they speak and how they might respond. Would they have any phrases they use a lot? Characters in Deep Space Nine say things like, "It has been my observation," a lot. So that one pops up quite frequently. And Garak, for example, has a way of talking that's quite discursive. He's trying to distract you from, the lie he's telling or the truth that he's maybe hiding away behind all this foliage of verbiage. And very prolix. Other people warp are much blunter, but at the same time can kind of floor everyone in the room by something that's very sharp and on point. Somebody like Picard, very measured. Again, you try to get a sense of it. You pick it all up from the dialogue. I think I'm very lucky that I enjoy listening to dialogue. I enjoy telling story through dialogue. So I find it relatively easy to pick up character voice. Description and visual material, I'm not so good at. I couldn't write a space battle to save my life, for example. I was like, oh, there's a ship and it shoots, and it doesn't make for arresting prose. But voice and narrative, I voice and dialogue in particular, I tend to find quite easy, and that comes from listening to the characters speak.
Well, for the record, you do an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now I saw that you're going to be working with Admiral Kathryn Janeway on her autobiography. So I'm curious about, how did that come about, and how much can you cover that's not referred to in the shows?
So my most recent project, I've been very lucky to work with Admiral Kathryn Janeway on her autobiography. So there I've been listening to her tell me stories about her past, and duly typing them up and preparing them for you, the reading public. So that's been a really fun project, and I was approached by the folks at Titan. They've done a series of these autobiographies. They've done Picard, they've done Kirk, and I think with the Voyager anniversary coming, they wanted to do Janeway, and they also wanted a woman writer, and they kind of went, oh, who's a woman? Oh, Una, she's a woman. So they offered me the gig, and I said I'd absolutely love to do that. I hadn't seen Voyager in a very long time. I think most of them I hadn't seen since transmission, or as close to transmission you could get in the UK video release. So I delivered the Picard book at the end of August last year, and then I kind of took a deep breath. I had a short holiday, and then I came back at the start of September, and I just completely immersed myself in Voyager. It's like a palate cleanser. I've been in this, this Picard universe, and suddenly I'm on board the Voyager and having to follow those adventures. So I watched it all in about a month, I think. It was quite intense. And then I just sat down and read the book. The joy of the book, of these books, is that they're in first person. So you're trying to capture Janeway's voice, and as I've said before, I find dialogue very easy to write. I find voice very easy to capture. You get into the cadences of the speech of the person. I read Kate Mulgrew's autobiographies as well, because I think she brings a lot of herself to Janeway. So I try to immerse myself as much as possible in that voice, and then it came very naturally to write. In terms of what we covered, it does cover the whole of Janeway's life. So I think people will see episodes of the familiar story of Voyager from Janeway's perspective, perhaps reflecting on some of the more contentious episodes and the decisions she made. She's telling it from the future as an admiral, so we're getting her reflections on that. But we'll also hopefully get her perspective on her childhood and her upbringing, and the reasons that she took certain career decisions or relationships she was involved in, and so on. So it covers the whole sort of period of her life, as well as what happens on Voyager.
Does she miss the lizard children she had with Paris?
You'll have to read to find out. There are several things we kind of went, oh, what are we going to do with this one? I hope there are fun answers to everything. I think with a book like this, you're conscious that there are episodes that you're kind of going, how are they going to explain that one? And we tried really hard to come up with convincing, entertaining, and arresting answers, shall we say?
Well, I cannot wait to read it. I'm very excited about that. So what is your favorite Star Trek series? And of that series, what is your favorite episode?
So what's my favorite Star Trek series? And of that, what is my favorite episode? Would it surprise anyone if I said that my favorite Star Trek series is Deep Space Nine, which blew my mind. My friend was quite right when he insisted I watched it, that I would love it. So I've got to thank him. I love it sort of, I love its serialization. I love the way the story builds. I love how these recurring characters get phenomenal plot lines. I think Damar is the one we all pick out as a character that we go, you would never have guessed this guy at the back of the bridge, frequencies open, sir, or something, is going to turn into this tragic, heroic figure. So all of that I love. And my favorite episode, I think the best episode is in The Pale Moonlight, which is just great from start to finish. Garak and Cisco are electrifying throughout it. Garak kind of slowly corrupt him. And of course, I did a spin-off book, a kind of a follow-up book to that called Hollow Men. So I'd say that one, but I'd also put a word in for an episode I really love, which is towards the end of the show, and it's called Tacking into the Wind. And the parts of it that I absolutely love concern Kira, Garak, Damar, and Odo, who are sort of failing to like each other whilst trying to run the Cardassian resistance. And I find it a really powerful narrative with these four people trying to pull together, but with so much personal and political history between them. The whole of the Cardassian occupation of Bajor is between these people, and they have to put this aside to work on a common goal and defeat a common enemy. And I found it incredible storytelling and really, really powerful performances. So those are my top picks. Those are the ones that come straight to mind when I think about favourite episodes.
I love In the Pale Moonlight as well, and your book Hollow Men was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the Visitor's another one but that's one everybody says is great.
Yeah, it's a very moving, a very just a lovely character piece, I think, as much as anything. Yeah.
Who are your favorite Star Trek characters? Top two.
Who are my favorite Star Trek characters? Right, I'm going to pick a top two. Garak, kind of obvious. Again, maybe obvious, but I am going to say Kira, because I think she's such a fantastic female character. And at the time, but people probably don't think of this now, but at the time, we're talking early, mid-90s, you really didn't see a character like that, a female character like that, too much. She was really groundbreaking as a character. She was somebody who was not about her loves or her boyfriends or her anxieties about appearance or anything, or these sorts of things. She was a patriot, she was a soldier, she was a fighter. And yet at the same time, she had this religious and spiritual side, a side that was to do with belief and prayerfulness and spirituality. She's a very complex character. She goes on a great journey through the whole of Deep Space Nine, and it's a fantastic performance. So I would say Kira, and then of course Garak, for too many reasons to count.
I absolutely love that. What do you see as the future of Star Trek?
So what do I see as the future of Star Trek? Well, I hope we have much, much more of it. It's looking a really, really healthy state at the moment. We've got Discovery, we've got Picard, who knows what else is coming. I think it's fantastic that we're getting all these new shows, that people might be watching Star Trek who never did before, because there was so much hoo-ha around Patrick Stewart coming back, and maybe are kind of going, well, maybe I'll go and take a look at Next Generation, or I've got a friend who's always going on about how I should be watching Deep Space Nine. Maybe I'll go back and take a look, and they can go and find it on Netflix quite easily. So it's in a really healthy state at the moment. I think enjoy it while we can. Let's hope there's as many more shows as possible. These things always go in peaks and troughs. It's the same with Doctor Who. It was on for a long time, then it was off and it came out back and has been fantastic. So let's enjoy this period of having so much new material and still having all this old stuff to enjoy. And let's hope there's years of it yet.
I love that answer. Thank you. So those are all the questions I had, but I have one last thing I'd like you to do. This is going to sound really strange. Could you do Space the Final Frontier, that speech, and then end with Live Long and Prosper? We're going to edit everybody together saying it, if you understand what I'm saying. Oh,
sure, yeah. Well, the whole speech, can you believe I don't have it memorized?
Oh!
I really, really don't. I've got a terrible memory. My head is, my memory is entirely outsourced to my devices, and I don't trust my memory. So I'd have to find it online. Hang on a tick. Space, the Final Frontier. Speech, Star Trek intro speech. Isn't that embarrassing? I've showed myself up there.
I was going to say your favorite shows didn't do those speeches, so.
No, not really. Blake 7 didn't have. Which one do you want? Do you want Picard or do you want?
Well, go ahead and do Picard, because it's, I guess, the more PC version, I guess, because it's no one. right?
More inclusive. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
All right, and
let's
I'll mute
just,
myself again.
and I'll
And
just.
thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no worries at all. Let's just do this in such a way that it looks like I'm looking at the camera and not at the prompt. Okay, all right. And then you want me to end with
Live long and prosper.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Live long and prosper.
That was fantastic.
Loved it a bit.